Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. My name is Michael Nilsson. I am currently 31 years old. I was born into the family of a very sweet middle-class couple in the heart of America. I was raised on traditional values where there was a strong sense of right and wrong. Everyone respected those who deserved respect. You didn't cheat. When you gave your word, it meant something. Work hard, be generous with what you have, and live up to your values. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Of course, most people never think about the downside of this. Do to others as they have done to you. A Christian should turn the other cheek. Unfortunately, I've never been good at it. I've always had what has been described as extreme stubbornness. Combine this with my sense of justice. Well, sometimes it got pretty ugly. When I decided that someone had done something wrong to me and determined my actions to deal with it, nothing could dissuade me from my path. I dated Cheryl Haskins once in high school. We've been dating for a couple of months now. We had an argument about something that I don't even remember. Anyway, the words were said, and we broke up. I put it in quotation marks because it was clear that it was temporary, and we would apologize to each other in a couple of days and be together again. This is not the first time this has happened. We would just use the weekend to cool off and put on makeup on Monday. Unfortunately, on Saturday evening, I happened to pass by the theater and saw my cousin Harold escorting Cheryl to the theater. There are two things here. Harold and I were more like brothers than cousins. We were the same age and had been practically inseparable for as long as I can remember. His family lived on the same block as me, and we grew up together. Secondly, I knew he liked Cheryl too. He knew that we had broken up, but he also knew that we would probably get back together after the weekend. Buddies just don't do that to each other. From that moment on, he was dead to me. When Cheryl tried to talk to me on Monday, I just refused to even acknowledge her presence. Harold came up to me at church on Sunday and tried to talk to me. I just stared at him without saying a word. When he finished speaking, I just turned around and left. His family came for Sunday dinner. I ignored him. He tried to play video games with me. I just stopped playing and went to my room. Our parents tried several times to get me to talk to him, but I refused each time. Even a year after I actually stole his girlfriend from him, I refused to have anything to do with him. Oh, I really kicked his ass when he confronted me about stealing his girlfriend, but that was it. Many years later, he sent me an invitation to his wedding. I ignored him. When I married Wanda, all the members of my extended family received an invitation except him. Okay, so I'm a bit of an asshole and I'm holding a grudge. The thing is, when someone does something bad to me, I don't forgive unless it was an honest mistake. What Harold and Cheryl did was done on purpose. Right now, many of you think I'm an asshole. If that's the case, let me piss you off a little more, snowflakes. I firmly believe that you should not commit a crime if you cannot serve time. If you are stupid and spoiled, you must suffer the consequences of your actions completely. If you drive drunk and get caught, expect to lose your license for a while, pay higher insurance, and do community service or something. If your job depends on your driving, you lose your job. I call it the stupidity tax. If a girl decides to spread her legs without protection and gets pregnant at 18, her stupidity tax will be called mommy for the next 18 years. If a guy decides to stuff his girlfriend's belly at the prom and get her pregnant, he should be required to be a man and take care of the child he was half responsible for creating. The choice has consequences. This is called personal responsibility. I refused to pay for someone's idiocy. So I studied hard in high school and got pretty good grades. I got some good scholarships and went to college. I got along well with the ladies and kept my grades high. I have always been handsome and tried to maintain my health. Yes, in high school I got into more than my fair share of fights because of my personal beliefs. I won more than I lost. Nevertheless, I was in good physical shape and it seemed that women found me quite attractive. I graduated from university with a degree in economics and accounting, got a master's degree, and then got a decent job at a large company that paid really good money. Being single with few bills to pay, I started playing the stock market. I found out that I kind of have a talent for it and I did it pretty well. I had been working for several months when I met Wanda at a party. We got along well and I asked her out. She agreed and everything went on as usual. I must say she was beautiful. I kind of laugh about it. Seriously, how many guys have ever said that their girlfriend is ugly? Of course, for some it may be ugly, but for them, it is beautiful. Anyway, I can say that Wanda is beautiful because she always attracts stares when we go out. and each of my friends commented on how they would try to hit on her if we ever broke up. Even some of my lesbian friends have commented on trying to convert her if she becomes available. In the end, I asked, she agreed, and we got married. Perhaps I should mention that Wanda actually went to college. I like to joke that she went for her Mrs. degree. She didn't get it, but she did get a degree in art history, which allowed her to get a job as a barista at Starbucks. For those who are confused, a Mrs. degree means a girl who goes to college so that she can postpone growing up for a few years and graduate from high school with a husband who will take care of them for the rest of their lives. Yes, I'm an arrogant jerk, back off. So we plunged into family bliss. She quit her job a week before the wedding and became a housewife. Our life was great and we bought a nice 3-bedroom house. I did my job well and also made good money playing the stock market. We didn't actually live extravagantly, so we managed to save quite a lot of money. All my bonuses went towards our investments. My goal was to retire before the age of 40 and enjoy a hellish life. I was damn good at what I did, and my employer rewarded me with solid bonuses and promotions. I was climbing the corporate ladder fast. A few years after our wedding, I came home from work on a Friday evening and found that Wanda was dressed to the nines. She had a big smile on her face. "Hurry up, take a shower and change your clothes. We're going to celebrate tonight, Dad." Did she just say that? I was shocked. We've been trying to do this for months now, so it didn't just happen. However, I was surprised when she said that it had finally happened. I hugged her and spun her around, showering kisses on her face. Deciding that we would mute our celebrations due to pregnancy and baby for a while, we lit up the city that night. The next few months consisted of joyful moments and preparation for the new life that we brought to the world. A couple of months later, we had another shock. The twins. There were 2 little girls there. I couldn't wait to start pampering them and have 2 little daddy girls wrapping me around their fingers. I was on top of the world. Finally, that day has come. We rushed to the hospital, and a few hours later we had 2 little girls. They were beautiful, healthy, and they had all their fingers and toes. As twins, they had to stay in the hospital for a couple of days longer than usual, but everything went well. When we took them home, both families were there to greet us. Everyone was happy. I noticed that Mom was almost constantly looking at them. I think she was so happy because I finally gave her the granddaughters she wanted so much. So life has changed for us. I decided that working for a big company was putting me too far away from my family. I had a lot of free money, so I decided to create my own company. I invested and played the market pretty well, so I decided to get the necessary licenses and open my own investment firm. I have already helped several of my friends and relatives, so I talked to them about becoming official clients. This caused everything to move forward. As soon as I opened up, several of my former colleagues also handed over their portfolios to me. During the year, I had a decent list of clients, and some of them discussed with their friends the possibility of joining me. When you are on top of the world, the only direction you can go is down. It was the girls' 2nd birthday. We turned it into a full-fledged celebration. Of course, they would never remember it, but it was a celebration. They will be able to watch the video when they get older and enjoy it. The whole family on both sides was there. We've all had a phenomenal time until then. I was just about to leave the bedroom after using my parents' bathroom. Just before I was about to go to the door, I heard my mom talking to her sister in the hallway. "I just can't figure out where those blue eyes came from," Mom said. "Have you asked Michael about this?" my aunt asked. "Oh my God, no. I can't even imagine what would happen if he found out they weren't his. He's so happy that it's probably going to kill him." I couldn't listen to the rest. I quietly returned to the bathroom and locked the door behind me. I needed to think about it. They should have been mine. Surely someone in our families had blue eyes. My eyes were dark brown. Wanda had light brown eyes. I mentally imagined all my relatives. The only one who didn't have brown eyes was my cousin Mary. She had green eyes, but that was on her father's side, and he wasn't a blood relative. Then I started thinking about Wanda's family. I couldn't remember anyone on her side with blue eyes. After a while, I decided that I needed to calm down and join the festivities before I was missed. I somehow managed to suppress my feelings, make a happy face, and return to the party. The rest of the day was spent in hell. I did manage to behave as everyone expected, but I was mentally making some plans for what I was going to do later. In the end, everything went quiet and everyone left. While putting the girls to bed that night, I carefully studied their features, a few traits that I could see in Wanda. I didn't recognize the others. I didn't find anything that I could definitely say was from me. The next day, I was sitting at the computer while Wanda was napping with the girls. I've arranged for some things to be delivered to my office. I used the company's credit card so that Wanda wouldn't see the bill. I also did some research on local PI firms. The suspicion that Wanda had cheated on me almost 3 years ago was getting stronger. If she cheated on me then, has she cheated on me still? I needed proof if that was the case. A few days later, the goods I ordered arrived. I also met and hired a company called Pro Investigations. I gave them all the information about Wanda's mobile phone, tablet, and laptop that they needed to have in order to hack. I also started making some financial moves. If she wasn't cheating and the girls were actually mine, these moves wouldn't really make any difference. However, if what I thought was true, it would make all that money out of her reach. I'm damned if I was going to pay for her womanizing, and I sure as hell wasn't going to pay for other people's kids. Of course, the girls here are innocent victims, but so am I. Does she want to make love and get pregnant by someone else? Let them pay for it. Nothing has been established yet, but I was just waiting for evidence. It was 2 weeks later. I received a letter at the office. I closed and locked my door before opening the letter. I cried for an hour when I found out they weren't mine. Deep down, I already knew that, but I hoped I was wrong. My private investigator met with me the next day and gave me all the evidence he had received. Her personal trainer at the gym was blonde with blue eyes. She still saw him a couple of days a week. She even took the girls with her to his apartment so that he could communicate with his daughters. Yes, the audio recording confirmed that they both knew who the real donor was. I had an appointment with a divorce lawyer the next day. I'm not a fool. I've already figured out that the law is going to tie me to a table and rape my ass without using lube. He gave me his advice, and I firmly rejected it. He explained how the law works. I explained how I work. He told me that it's not about being fair. It's about taking care of the children. I said that she and her lover could take care of the children without me and my money. I told him my demands and left. I think he should have rejected me as a client even then. He didn't get it. I told him to prepare the documents, but to hold them until I called and let him know that I was ready to submit the documents. Maybe he got the wrong impression that I was going to try to sort things out. Okay, I lied about it through my teeth. It took 2 months. Everything was over, and she didn't even feel the slightest hint of a problem. Thank God that in junior high I took drama lessons as an art elective. I finally got to the point where I had, at least on paper, 0 net income and 0 assets. Well, except for a house and a beat-up Chevrolet pickup truck. There was a heavy mortgage on the house. We have refinanced and withdrawn capital for some upgrades, so selling it probably won't even cover the brokerage fees. My Lexus actually belonged to the company, not to me personally. I had about $10,000 in cash stashed away to live on for the next couple of months. Wanda was very surprised when my cousin Howard and his wife Cheryl showed up that weekend. I explained that Howard and Cheryl had come to my office a couple of weeks ago. After some serious discussions, they admitted that what they had done was wrong. They sincerely apologized, and I decided it was time to move on. Damn it, you people are so trusting. Yes, we made up. It's absolutely true that Howard and Cheryl did come to my office last week. Yes, they apologized again. All this is absolutely true. I am an honest man. I'm seriously not lying about anything. I really forgave them and welcomed them back into my life. Although I may have neglected a couple of irrelevant facts. Coincidences, actually. There are several people in Cheryl's family who, well, let's just say, are quite capable of breaking a few minor laws. Some of them are also quite tough and have no prejudice against getting into a bar fight from time to time. Although I absolutely do not believe the rumors, it has been mentioned more than once that 4 or 5 of them may be performers for one of the local shadowy groups of businessmen. Of course, these are just the speculations of gossips who just don't like them. Despite the fact that this is completely unrelated to this story, a couple of days before Howard and Cheryl came to visit, a story appeared in the news about a coach at one of the local gyms who was robbed in the evening shortly after leaving work. Obviously, he was stupid enough to try to fight 5 robbers. Along with taking his wallet, car, and stripping him naked, the criminals continued to beat him to a pulp, leaving him with a broken jaw, a broken nose, several broken ribs, a broken arm, a dislocated kneecap, and a rupture of both testicles. He'll be in the hospital for at least a couple of weeks. The police really have to do something about crime in this city. Unfortunately, there are no suspects, as all the attackers were wearing dark clothes, gloves, and ski masks. The doctors did say that the blonde, blue-eyed victim was likely to make a full recovery after reconstructive facial surgery and significant physical therapy. It is unlikely that he will ever be able to have sexual intercourse again. Over the next 2 months, his car was sold piece by piece. His credit cards were depleted, his bank accounts were purged, and the information in his wallet was used to steal his identity and post it on the dark web. He will struggle with this for years to come. Strangely enough, Wanda was quite depressed and moody for a week or so after the robbery. I'm just guessing that she's also concerned about the rise in crime in the area. I did offer to strengthen the security of the house, but it didn't seem to calm her down too much. On Monday morning, I called my lawyer and asked him to finish the paperwork and arrange them. I wanted her to be served on Friday afternoon. He tried to persuade me to change some things, but I was adamant. On Tuesday, the forms were ready for my review and signature. I met with him at his office to finalize everything. He warned me against my actions again. After thinking about it, I decided to play along with him. I gave her the house. Hell, I even invested the money. Of course, I stipulated that I would not pay a cent for anything else. If she wanted to keep the house, she could pay the mortgage and utilities for it. Oh, and there hasn't been a cent in the investment accounts for over a month. I had no problem giving her 100% of zero. What Wanda didn't notice was that I was taking all my tools and equipment out of the garage. I also slowly moved things that I wanted to keep away from home. Most of it was from my home office. The tools and larger items were stored at the ranch owned by Howard and Cheryl. Smaller items that weren't really valuable were moved to a small 2-room apartment in a complex owned by a certain LLC. The owners of the LLC turned out to be surprisingly difficult to find and verify. Finally, Friday morning came. I went to work as usual. A couple of days ago, Howard helped me move something to the office. I abandoned the car, got into a pickup truck, and drove to the bank. Once at the bank, I cleared all accounts, leaving $100 in checks and savings. Then I went to the safe and cleaned it out too. I went to the ranch and put all the cash and the contents of the safe together with my other belongings. I didn't want to risk them finding a recently rented safe deposit box at another bank and seizing it. I also didn't want anyone to trace the bank transfer. Besides, I'll probably need cash. You may be wondering why I trusted Howard and Cheryl. It was pretty simple. You see, the mortgage on their ranch belonged to a certain LLC with a rather dubious property. Besides, even though we had our own problems, he's still a family member. The principle of don't mess with your family is important to us. The rest of the family takes such things to heart. There was a lot of joy in the family when Howard and I finally reconciled. I returned to the house. By this time, it was already late in the morning. I pulled over a couple blocks away and checked the GPS I had installed in Wanda's car. Of course, she was at the mall, as expected. I hurried home and parked in the driveway. Over the past couple of days, I've packed up my clothes and stuff and put them in the garage. After throwing some boxes into the truck, I went inside and grabbed the rest of the clothes from the closet and dresser. I didn't even bother to pack anything. I just grabbed an armful of hangers and all that. It only took a couple of trips to get everything into the truck's cab. My cell phone rang as I was leaving the house. It was Wanda. I'm guessing her cards weren't working when she was trying to pay for her purchases. I took one last look at the GPS signal and saw that she was moving in that direction. I just laughed, threw the phone on the table, and walked out the door. In a few minutes, I was already several blocks away. I arrived at my new apartment and moved everything from my truck to the appropriate rooms. 3 beers later, and everything was cleaned up. I was just leaning back in my chair when my new phone rang. There were only a few people who had this number, and my future ex-wife wasn't one of them. "Hello," I replied. She was served. "You will have a video soon," said the voice. "Good, thanks," I replied before I hung up. Of course, 15 minutes later, I received the video by email. To say that she was shocked would be an understatement. Unfortunately, I only had a video of her being served until she fell to the floor like a bag of rocks. The man who served her checked to see if she was really unharmed, then turned around and left. That's the end of the video. I would like to see her reaction when she actually starts reading the divorce statement and realizes that I have DNA, as well as video evidence of her infidelity. From that moment on, everything moved at the speed of a glacier. I got a few phone calls. There were a few calls from my old office. She called several times to try to talk to me. Obviously, she didn't believe them when they told her that I quit and hadn't worked there for the last 2 weeks. Then she actually showed up in person, demanding to see me. It didn't turn out well for her. It took calling the police to escort her off the premises and get rid of her. Howard called a couple of times. She started harassing him, trying to contact me. I think she realized that his sudden appearance was not just a coincidence with my sudden divorce from her. Restraining orders for my former company and Howard were filed, and she finally had to leave them alone. It took 2 weeks before my lawyer finally contacted her to find out who her lawyer was. There hasn't been one yet. First of all, she was running out of money fast. In fact, all she had was cash in her purse and a total of $200 that I had left in bank accounts. She began to rely on the support of her parents. I was just hanging out and relaxing. I wasn't going to start any projects for a while because I planned to be unavailable. Plus, I didn't want anything to show up that she could take away from me. She finally found a lawyer. The meetings were scheduled. I refused to attend and just gave my lawyer instructions. My position is firm, not a penny more. I understand that passions flared up at these meetings. In the end, it came to arbitration. I should have been there. The meetings didn't go well. Where's all the money, asshole? What money? All our money. We don't have any money. We're broke. In fact, I live in the cheapest one-bedroom apartment I could find. Seriously. And so it was. Just because it was cheap as I happened to meet the actual owner of the complex. All investments, checks, savings. It's all gone. I made a very bad investment. I wonder if investing in a cheating wife is considered bad. I've lost everything. Well, in a way it was true. I didn't know exactly where all these offshore banks actually keep their cash. We are giving her a house with only her name in the name. It's mortgaged to the hilt and there's no way I can afford the monthly payments, Wanda shouted. From that moment on, everything went downhill. Child support? Not my children, not my problems. Spousal maintenance. Alimony for you Philistines? There is no job, no income. No way, damn it. It requires 70% of liquid assets. No assets. Search as much as you want, you won't find anything. 50% of the business. Good luck with that. 50% of the pension. Which part of lost everything do you have problems understanding? Yes, the arbitration failed spectacularly. This brings us to our day in court. As mentioned at the beginning, it was in front of a very dishonest judge, Mary Matthews. She was the most feminist, man-hating family court judge in the history of the world. In fact, she seemed to be even tougher with men whose wives cheated on them. Of course, if it was a man who was cheating, he would usually have to be carried out of the courtroom after his balls were removed with her hammer. Yes, I screwed up. So, you're all planning to leave me a bunch of comments saying that I was stupid enough to think that I could successfully convince them that there was no money. You would be wrong. I knew perfectly well that they could just look at the bills from a couple of months ago and see how much was there. I wasn't at all surprised when the judge used these numbers to calculate exactly how far the screws would be screwed into me. The fact is that they did not have the opportunity to access the money. I didn't waste my time and transferred them through different banks and different accounts. I even went so far as to personally withdraw all the money from one bank, then went to several separate banks and deposited some of the funds into several other accounts. Of course, these accounts were under several different names. One of those rather dubious businesses that Cheryl's family was involved in was a souvenir shop where you could buy fake IDs for entertainment purposes only. It was even printed on these ID cards. I had one that even said I was Jesus Christ. I liked when I staged a prank, the victim would exclaim, "Jesus Christ," and then I would pull out my fake ID and agree with them. The fakes were really well made, and the only way to easily find out they were fake was because of the entertainment overprint on the front. They usually cost about $1.50. A few more zeros and they accidentally don't print the entertainment warning. Then I electronically transferred the money to other accounts. Of course, there may be a way to track the transfers, but it will be extremely expensive and will take months, if not years. I'll be long gone by then. So I found myself in front of that fool again. It was 60 days out of my 90-day stay as a county guest. These short-term sentences were handed down in a county jail, not a state prison. So, have you learned your lesson yet? She chuckled. You mean the lesson about not marrying a cheating fool? I found out long before I got here. I was referring to your attitude towards me in court. The vein on her forehead began to burst. I don't think it's too good for her blood pressure. I can't say that I find anything wrong with my behavior when I was chased along the railroad in front of a bunch of kangaroos. I began to seriously worry about her health. Her blood pressure should be measured during visits to the doctor. You know that I can extend your stay in prison, don't you? So what? If that's what you intend to do, I'll add another 30 days. So I brought you here today to discuss why you didn't pay your first child support and alimony to your ex-wife. Where's your lawyer? That's weird. I got the wrong impression that you have to be very smart to be a judge. Thank you for correcting me on this issue. Maybe I can explain it so you can understand. I'm sorry if this is still beyond your mind, but the lowest thing I can do is go down to a level where a fifth grader can understand. I really started to worry that her bench would catch fire from the flames she was snorting at that moment. I started to think that she didn't really like me. I'm in jail. I don't have access to any money. Since I don't have access to any money, I can't send any money. Since it was your dumb ass that got me there, maybe you can figure out why you're the reason a cheater can't get the money you're trying to steal from me to give to that cheater. So, do you understand all this? Or do I need to explain it even more slowly? So I was escorted back to my cell for another 90 days. 30 from my initial sentence, 30 from her first tirade, and 30 more that I managed to catch at the end. To be honest, it wasn't that bad. Of course, the food was disgusting, but I ate it anyway. I had a nice bed to sleep in and plenty of free time to relax. I used dumbbells and exercise equipment well. I didn't have any particular problems there. First of all, it didn't take too long for my courtroom antics to become common knowledge in prison. It gave me a few friends. Secondly, did I mention that Cheryl's family has some connections that can help someone inside the prison? In fact, there was only one problem. It came from one of Wanda's less intelligent cousins. He had a wild idea that he could be arrested for something minor, sent to jail for a week or so, and he could use that time to teach me a lesson. Firstly, literally, the entire prison population knew exactly who he was even before he set foot on the territory of the complex. It didn't take much brain power to figure out what he was up to. He was spotted halfway across the yard. Unfortunately, one of the prisoners bumped into him when he was trying to catch a wandering passerby throwing a soccer ball back and forth. I'm sure the elbow to the stomach was purely accidental. As soon as the cousin was able to get up and dust himself off, he stupidly continued his search. After another 20 feet, he was hit on the head with a basketball. The guy who made the bad pass apologized profusely. The elbow to the chin when he was being helped up was completely accidental. Shaking his head to get rid of the cobwebs in his eyes, he moved in my direction again. There were 2 more incidents before he finally arrived at his destination. Since my back was to him, he thought hitting me from behind was a good idea. Unfortunately, I was ready. Before he could raise his fist, I understood the signal, turned around and kicked him in the crotch with all my might. It was a clear goal. As the results of all the accidents seemed to have finally caught up with him, he was taken to the infirmary. 2 days later, he refused to go outside to practice. He spent as much time in his cell as he could until he was released. I went back to the evil queen. Are you ready to apologize? For what? For your heinous antics in this courtroom. I really don't understand what you're talking about. It doesn't matter. Perhaps at least you will be able to keep your mouth shut and not prolong your stay in prison. So I take it that there is a more reasonable judge who takes over the case? Boy, you're getting on my last nerves. Are you saying that I should start stomping my feet right now? I should probably see if they have a suggestion box somewhere. I have to suggest that paramedics be on duty in the courtroom in case she does have a stroke. Again, you have not yet paid any child support or alimony to your ex-wife. You also did not pay the mortgage on the house or any utilities, as I ordered. I thought we went through this last time. I can't pay anything while I'm cooling off here in prison. Secondly, since you put me in jail, I can't work and earn money to pay for something. Thirdly, they are not my children, so I do not know why I should pay anything for them. Fourth, my ex-wife is a cheating fool, and I don't think I'm going to have to pay for her to wanton with my money. If she wants to use everything that moves, she has to find a job and pay for her life. Maybe she can start charging for it and make some money that way. And finally, you gave her half of the business. She must have a lot of money from this. Your Honor, Wanda's lawyer spoke up. We were unable to take over part of my client's business. It appears that Mr. Nilsson sold his company to an overseas company about 2 months before he filed for divorce. Currently, we have not even been able to determine who the actual owners are in order to contact them about the court order. Suddenly, a rather attractive woman stood up. Your Honor, I represent the board of directors of the company that acquired this business. I have a motion to dismiss the decision to grant Mrs. Nilsson any part of the business previously owned by her ex-husband. It is extremely unwise to award one-party ownership of a business that is not a party to the pending court case. Since the purchase was completed before the divorce was filed, this company has nothing to do with this case. Therefore, We reject any claim by Mrs. Nilsson to ownership of the business in question." "But what about the money from the sale?" Wanda whined. "The transfer of ownership and payments were made abroad. I am not privy to this information, but as far as I understand, the money from the purchase has never entered the United States and, therefore, is not subject to U.S. laws. I'm afraid that you will have to make a claim for this money to your ex-husband. You can do this in any country where the money is located." "In which country?" my ex-wife's lawyer asked. "The initial transfer of funds was in Belgium, but as far as I understand, the money was transferred somewhere else shortly after the sale. I have no idea where they have been transferred to." The young woman replied. "Your Honor," my ex's lawyer spoke up again. "My client is desperate right now. The house will be seized because the mortgage has not been paid for 3 months. Utilities are about to be turned off. Her parents were able to help a little when it first started, but it's getting too much for them. My client got a job, but she's a waitress at a local diner. He doesn't get enough to keep the house. Mr. Nilsson, you have 1 week to bring all payments up to date." "Oh, of course, absolutely. Here, let me bend over and just get the money out of my ass." "Oops, there's nothing there. Unfortunately, I am physically unable to comply. Perhaps I haven't explained it clearly enough. In prison. I don't have access to the money that you all think I have. I can't work because I'm in prison, so I also can't get money that way. You keep thinking that all this money is in my cell. Ask the guards. They check the camera every week. You keep ordering me to pay, but you don't give me the opportunity to do so," I stressed. "Mr. Nilsson, you can ask your lawyer to access your accounts and transfer funds to your ex-wife. First of all, as you can clearly see, I do not have a lawyer. Secondly, what are the accounts? You keep talking about these phantom accounts, but where are they? I keep trying to explain to you that I'm completely broke, but you refuse to believe it. Thirdly, even if these phantom accounts existed somewhere, do I have access information in my head? I will need access to my financial records to get bank accounts and route numbers to access these phantom accounts. Anyway, it's all moot because there are no bills. If these accounts somehow exist, would you be so kind as to show me the information about them? What happened to all the money from your checking account, savings account, and investments? I told you that last time. It was a couple of very bad investments. I took a chance and was destroyed. What about the money from the sale of your company? The company was in a bad way because of these investments. I had to sell it cheap and use the payments to cover the costs. There's no more money left." "Mr. Nilsson, do you really think the court believes this nonsense?" I shrugged my shoulders. "I don't care. If you think I'm lying, show me the account information where I hide all this money. I think she stole all the money and is trying to cheat me while she uses her boyfriends." "It doesn't even make sense," her lawyer shouted. "It makes as much sense as keeping me in jail where I don't have access to money and then demanding that I make all these payments that you all want," I replied. "Mr. Nilsson, do you know that I can keep you in jail until you pay?" the judge asked. I just looked at her as if she had just grown a third eye. "I'll play along. Go ahead and keep me where I can't follow orders because the demands of the court are simply impossible for me to fulfill." It sounds logical. 3 months later, the house was foreclosed on. Wanda lost her Lexus because she couldn't afford to pay. Now she lived with her parents because she couldn't afford an apartment for herself and the girls. She worked at the diner for 30 hours a week. They begged the judge to let me out so that I could start making some payments. The lover was discharged from the hospital and underwent physical therapy. He spent hours every day trying in vain to clarify his financial situation. The only good thing was that no new credit card accounts were opened in his name. That's because his credit score was so low by this point that no one else wanted to issue credit cards in his name. He only had minimal insurance on his car, so he didn't get anything out of it. Because he didn't work full-time at the gym, he had personal health insurance with very high deductibles. It will take him years to pay the medical bills. I finally have a lawyer. She made a deal with the judge to let me out of jail so I could find a job and start paying. I had to hand over my passport because they were convinced that I had money somewhere, and there was a risk that I could fly away. I was a good boy and went to work at the local Taco Bell. By this time, I was already living on the ranch with Howard and Cheryl. I was being watched in case I had a stash of cash somewhere. Of course, I knew this and easily guessed who was watching me. They couldn't get into the ranch grounds, so they had to keep an eye on the road. I don't think they knew that most of the cash was already in my possession. This was the case for the next 3 months. Wanda used a court order to tie my salary to my job. I didn't care. I was getting the minimum wage, so she was getting almost nothing. During this time, I finalized my plans. Howard emptied my apartment while I was in jail. He shared everything in my extended family. A couple of weeks ago, several packages were sent from my extended family. All these packages were addressed to the same place. Several members of Cheryl's family came to visit at different times. We even had a few barbecues with them, with the participation of my extended family. What the observers did not notice was that the guests went to the sheds behind the house during the day and picked up some packages that they put in their cars. Over the next 2 weeks, these packages were repackaged and shipped. I spent my time either at work or at home. I didn't go out. In the end, Taco Bell had to get a restraining order against Wanda because she constantly came to the restaurant to pester me for the money I owed her. It has become devastating. Of course, they could have just fired me, but a little cash to the manager changed her mind about that. When I needed to meet with my lawyer, she came to the ranch. We had a lot of meetings. Oh, did I tell you about my new lawyer? Of course not. She represented the interests of the new owners of my former company in court. As soon as she finished, I hired her as my lawyer. She's a real shark, too. Well, I prefer to think of her as a barracuda, especially when she's skinny dipping in the pool. She is smooth, slender, and suddenly attacks when I'm sitting naked on the edge of the pool. She also has an insatiable appetite. What do you mean it's unethical for a lawyer to sleep with his client? I said she's a lawyer, right? An ethics lawyer? You're joking, right? Lawyers believe that morality is big paintings on the walls. So you're probably wondering about my money. Yes, I did sell my company. No, I didn't sell it to myself. I wasn't going to give Wanda the slightest chance to stumble upon any information that she could use to take away any part of the firm. I was getting rid of everything. Besides, I needed cash. Since the sale took place abroad and the money never came under the jurisdiction of the United States of America, it was not subject to U.S. laws. Wanda could only get them if I deposited the money in an American bank. With the verdicts against me, she could claim it. It just shouldn't have happened. It was a lot of money. Added to this were my investment accounts, which were in the $10 million range. The cash on hand from the safe, checking, and savings accounts, as well as my safes with cash in them, amounted to about $200,000. I used some of the cash for my plans, but I had about $150,000 on hand. I wasn't going to take the money with me. So it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon. We had another barbecue with a big family. All the preparations were completed and everything was ready. The party was very fun. I helped Howard with the grill and smokehouse. Julia, my lawyer, was there too. In the late afternoon, one of Cheryl's uncles came up to me. He expressed his gratitude that I had helped Cheryl and Howard get out of debt and was glad that we had finally reconnected. We talked for a while and he pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. I handed it to Julia to put in her briefcase. Later in the evening, I made an announcement. I announced that the owner of the collateral on the ranch had announced that the mortgage on the ranch had been paid off, and that Howard and Cheryl now owned the ranch freely and permanently. This caused a huge celebration. That night we had a lot of fun. It was already late in the evening when the guests began to disperse. Julia couldn't stay the night because she had to catch a plane the next morning. She left with a group of 6 other cars. Oddly enough, her flight was departing from an airport in a neighboring state. She had already packed her things and everything was in her rental car when she arrived at the party. She never returned to her rented apartment. Instead, she went straight to the airport. No one saw the man get out of her car in the parking lot, and no one paid attention to the man who was casually walking 50 feet behind her towards the international terminal. Michael Nilsson could not travel outside the United States because he surrendered his passport in court. Mitchell Nelson's passport didn't even get a second look. No one even looked at them as they held hands in the seats next to each other as they flew first class to Mexico City. Julia Davis suddenly disappeared. Instead, Jamie Nelson joined Mitchell Nelson for their connecting flight to Ecuador. 2 days had passed when Greg and Samantha Cooper reached their hacienda on the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. They were now multiple members of the Mile High Club. Strangely, an old Chevrolet pickup truck, similar to the one that disappeared from the ranch owned by Howard and Cheryl, was waiting for them at the hacienda. 2 weeks after the barbecue, a court order was issued for the arrest of Michael Nilsson. He didn't show up for work 2 days after the barbecue. He was fired for not showing up and not calling. Since then, no payments have been made to his ex-wife. When Howard and Cheryl were subpoenaed, a lawyer in a $5,000 skirt suit appeared with them. She has successfully proved that the couple does not bear any responsibility towards their cousin. He was just renting a room from them, and one day he disappeared. They even sued him for his own rent. All the information they could give was that one afternoon he drove off in his old pickup truck and just didn't come back. Of course, no one really believed them, but there was no evidence to the contrary. For the next few years, Greg Cooper operated a small charter fishing boat. His wife Samantha ran their little cantina. They were happy in the small village. Their hacienda was one of the largest, with some luxury items. From time to time, they had visitors for a while. Harold and Cheryl were often there, as were other members of Howard and Cheryl's family. It was a simple but pleasant life for both Greg and Samantha. They really loved each other. They spent most of their evenings entertaining guests in a small cantina or in their luxurious hacienda. Being both rich and pleasant to everyone around them, they were both quickly accepted into the small community. Whenever there was a need in the community, they donated generously. It should be noted that Greg constantly gambled on the stock markets when he was not on his boat or in the cantina. He even opened accounts for some local residents and helped them with their finances. It's been 17 years since the last barbecue Michael and Julia attended at the ranch. Greg and Samantha's children, Michael Cooper and his younger sister Julia, worked in the cantina, helping their parents. Michael was 17 years old, and Julia had just turned 16. They were discussing plans for the weekend when two slightly older blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls entered. The girls looked around, then focused on their brother and sister. With identical steps, the identical pair moved decisively in their direction. "Hello," the girl on the right began. "Would you be so kind as to inform the owners of this establishment that we are here to meet with Michael Nielsen and Julia Davis, please?" "Well, I can tell my parents about it, but I assure you they have no idea who these people are. Our parents are the owners, and I've never heard them ever mention those names. I have been in this cantina all my life, and I assure you that there has never been a Michael Nielsen for Julia Davis here, unless they were tourists," Michael replied. The twins exchanged a quick glance, then the one on the left spoke up. "Tell them it's Kayla and Katie Nielsen, Michael's daughters and your stepsisters. First of all, our parents are Greg and Samantha Cooper, not Michael Nielsen and Julia Davis. Secondly, what makes you think that we are in the least connected? Yes, now we know what names they are hiding under. It took a lot of hard work and a lot of money to figure out this information. How do we know that we are related is that you, Michael, are a sample image of your father's photographs from 20 years ago. Besides, Julia there looks very much like her mother of the same time. Of course, we are not related by blood, but the courts have ruled that your father is legally our father. I just walked into the back of the cantina with a couple of tuna we were supposed to offer as the catch of the day. Samantha greeted me at the door with a kiss. As soon as I put the fish on the counter to start cutting, Michael came through the door. "Hi, Dad. Two blondes have just entered the cantina. They're looking for Michael Nielsen and Julia Davis. They say they are your daughters." Well, to say that I was shocked would be an understatement. Of course, we didn't hide our names too much, but I thought by the time we got here, we were pretty well covered. Well, I think I should go and talk to them. In fact, there was no particular threat. I'm pretty sure the statute of limitations has already expired for everything I was guilty of. Besides, it would be nice to find out what kind of trouble I might get into if they have any plans to get back at me. With that thought in mind, I looked at my wife and shrugged my shoulders before turning around and walking into the cantina's dining room. I noticed the twins right away. They were almost copies of their mother when she was their age. Samantha followed me as I approached the table where they were talking to my daughter. After sending the two children away to take care of a few customers in the dining room, Samantha and I sat down opposite the twins. At least it should be an interesting conversation. "Hi, Dad," said the one on the left. "It's nice to finally meet you." "Hi, Kayla and Katie. I'm not sure which one of you is which, but since you're here, you should probably know that I'm not really your father," I replied. "Oh yes, we are fully aware of this. Thanks to FOIA, we were able to obtain all the transcripts of your numerous court appearances. Obviously, Mom wasn't happy about it, but as soon as we turned 18, we could apply as adults without asking her permission." "Okay, obviously you know the whole story. You also seem to understand my position on this issue, and yet you are here. You spent a lot of effort and money to find me, and then you actually came all this way to see me. What for?" "Oh, it's really very simple. We are here to bargain for your freedom. Technically, you're still on the hook for a bunch of alimony and maintenance for our mom. This means that you can actually be arrested if you ever go anywhere where there is an extradition treaty with the United States. Now, we all know that there is such an extradition treaty between Costa Rica and the United States, but in this case, it's more trouble than it's worth. However, if you ever actually enter the United States, you can easily be arrested, Kayla said. That's what we're offering, Katie joined in. We want to go to college. Our grades are good enough for some scholarships, but we still need funds to make up the difference, as well as living expenses. If you finance us for the remainder, we will apply to the court for relief from the rest of your liability. What about your mother? I am not sure that she will be so lenient as to give all the money that is owed to her. I wouldn't worry too much about that. If you agree to our proposal, she will hardly have the opportunity to create problems. In fact, she won't even be in the US to fight for anything. I suddenly had a bad feeling about this. I was afraid to ask the next question. I just knew that I really wouldn't like the answer. So where can she be? I really didn't like Kayla and Katie's smirks. Oh, she's going to be in Costa Rica running this cute little cantina on the coast, so the owners will have plenty of time to visit relatives and enjoy life. Please tell me she's not waiting right outside, I begged. You're lucky. I can honestly say that she is not on the street. Kayla smiled. I was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when I heard a voice behind me. Hi, Michael, Katie clarified. She's inside, right behind you. I turned around and looked at the only person on this planet that I never wanted to see. Hi, Wanda. That was 4 years later. Julie and I sat in the stands and watched Kayla and Katie graduate from the University of Arizona. Michael Jr. and JJ, Julie Jr., were sitting next to us. Next to me, on the other side of Julie, was Wanda. We gave her a leave of absence from running our cantina so she could come with us and watch her daughters graduate from school. Yes, I paid for their education. I was rich and could easily afford it. Besides, I'm already pretty tired of sneaking into the United States to see my relatives. Wanda realized that she would never get anything out of me, and decided that living well in Costa Rica was much better than fighting in the USA. She wasn't rich, but we paid her a decent salary. She even managed to get a really nice guy, whom she eventually married. Oh, and the dishonest Judge Mary Matthews? I actually laughed my head off. A few years after I fled to Costa Rica, Judge Matthews' wife was caught cheating on her. Judge Matthews thoughtlessly adopted his wife's 3 children when they got married. Since they divorced, Judge Matthews has been forced to pay child support, the maintenance of his now ex-wife, as well as support the payment of housing for her. To add to the humiliation, her ex-wife quickly moved her couple into the house and continued to make love. Whenever they were seen in public, they behaved like a typical married couple, except that they had not officially married. I've heard rumors that they've finally set a wedding date a week after the youngest son graduates from college. Judge Matthews is required to pay child support and child support until the child graduates from college or until her ex-wife remarries. By a strange coincidence, the wedding happened exactly 1 week after all the financial obligations of Judge Matthews to her ex-wife were fulfilled.